All right. So, sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a bit of a vocabulary rut, using the same words day after day.
I know what you mean.
But I was looking at this guide to 20 advanced words, the kind that, can really make you sound smarter in everyday conversations.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be fun to kind of deep dive into some of these words.
I think that's a great idea. It's not just about sounding smart, though, right?
Right.
It's more about expressing yourself with more precision and nuance. And honestly, even understanding how other people are using language to kind of persuade you or inform you.
Right. Yeah. It's like you can be more persuasive and also not be persuaded by other people.
Exactly.
So we're not aiming to turn everyone into Shakespeare here.
No.
But I bet you'd be surprised how many of these words you've already encountered
Yeah.
without realizing, how much they can elevate your communication.
Absolutely. And that's actually what's so interesting about this particular set of words. They're not pulled from some obscure academic journal or something like that.
Right.
They're words that appear in everyday conversations, articles, books, you name it.
Yeah.
So knowing them inside and out, that really makes you a better speaker.
Yeah.
But it also makes you a more critical listener at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like having a secret decoder ring for the English language.
I like that.
Yeah. So let's unlock some of these words.
Okay.
What's our first one?
Well, we'll start with intriguing. Now, on the surface, it just means very interesting.
Yeah.
But think about the difference between saying, that movie sounds interesting,
Right.
versus that movie sounds intriguing.
Ooh, yeah. Intriguing definitely has more weight to it.
Right.
It's like you're saying that movie has hooked your curiosity and you need to know more.
Precisely. It suggests a much deeper level of engagement. You're not just passively interested, you're actively drawn in.
It's almost like intriguing implies there's a mystery to unravel.
Yeah, there's something more to it.
Yeah. Okay, what's next on our list?
Let's go with diligent, meaning showing care and perseverance in your work. Now, you could easily just say someone is hardworking, but diligent, that carries a different connotation, doesn't it?
It does. Hardworking just sounds like putting in the hours. But diligent, like you said, it makes me think of someone who's truly dedicated to their work.
Exactly.
Who really takes pride in what they're doing.
And that distinction can make all the difference, especially in like a professional setting.
Oh, totally.
Imagine you're describing a colleague to your boss, right? Diligent paints a much more impressive picture.
Right. It subtly implies that they go above and beyond just the bare minimum.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm already feeling my vocabulary muscles getting stronger. What's word number 3?
Let's tackle one we all know too well. Tedious.
Yes.
Meaning, of course, boring and repetitive, something that just seems to drag on forever.
Yeah. Tedious is the perfect word for that stack of paperwork on my desk.
Oh, I know.
Or that meeting that could have been an email.
Exactly. But the reason this word is so useful is that it allows you to express that feeling of boredom.
Right.
In a more sophisticated way.
So instead of just groaning that something's boring, using tedious actually makes you sound more articulate.
Precisely.
Right.
And it also allows you to be more specific about, what kind of boredom you're experiencing.
Okay.
Tedious implies a sense of monotony, of having to do something repetitive and unchallenging.
That's a good point. It's like saying, this is boring and it's making me feel drained because it's just so mindless.
Right. And by using that kind of nuanced language, you're really signaling to others that you're thoughtful and attentive to detail, even when you're describing something, negative.
Okay, I can definitely see how that could come in handy. Let's keep going.
Okay.
What's our next word?
This one's a big one, and we hear it used a lot, especially these days. Unprecedented. It means, quite simply, never done or known before.
This is definitely a word that carries a lot of weight, especially in the news.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like every other day there's some unprecedented event happening.
I know, right? But that's why it's so important to understand its true meaning.
Okay.
Unprecedented isn't just about something being new or different. It's about something being truly groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Something that breaks the mold.
So it's not just about a change, it's about a truly significant shift.
Exactly.
That's never, ever been seen before.
It's about recognizing those moments in history or in science or culture.
Yeah.
That just completely change the game.
And by using unprecedented correctly, we can avoid kind of diluting its power and make sure that it's used only when it's truly warranted.
Absolutely. It's about using language with precision and impact.
Okay. That's 4 words down, 16 to go.
Wow, we're making progress.
I know, I'm feeling more confident already.
That's great to hear.
What's up next?
Let's aim for completeness with comprehensive.
Okay.
This word signals that something is complete, thorough,
Uh-huh.
including all the necessary details.
So instead of just, asking for a report, I could ask for a comprehensive report.
Yes.
Meaning I want all the data, all the analysis, no stone unturned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And imagine, like, you're reading a review of some new gadget, right?
Uh-huh.
A comprehensive review that would cover all its features, the pros and cons,
Yeah.
comparisons to other similar products, and so on.
It's like saying, give me the full picture, leave nothing out.
Precisely. Comprehensive just implies a level of depth
Yeah.
and thoroughness that goes, beyond the surface.
I can see this word being useful in all sorts of situations.
Oh, yeah.
Work, research, even just planning a trip.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's word number 6?
Let's get a little more nuanced here
Okay.
with subtle.
Okay.
This word describes something that's not obvious,
Uh-huh.
delicate, or understated.
Ooh, subtle is a good one. It's like noticing those little details that most people might miss.
Yeah.
Like a subtle hint of spice in a dish, or a subtle change in someone's mood.
Exactly. And this word is all about being perceptive,
Uh-huh.
about paying attention to the fine details.
Yeah.
It suggests a level of awareness and understanding
Yeah.
that goes beyond the superficial.
I love that. It's like saying, I see what you did there, but in a much more sophisticated way.
Exactly. Subtle implies a deeper level of observation
Yeah.
and insight.
Like, this is great. We're already starting to unpack some really interesting words here.
I know, this is fun.
What's up next?
This one might hit a little close to home for us. Jargon. It refers to the specialized language used by a particular group or profession.
Oh, yeah. I think we're all guilty of using jargon sometimes. It's so easy to fall into that trap,
I know.
especially when you're talking to people in your own field.
But being aware of jargon and knowing when to avoid it, that is crucial for effective communication.
Yeah.
Think about it. Have you ever been in a conversation where you felt completely lost?
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone was just using all these technical terms that you just didn't understand.
Absolutely. It's like they're speaking a different language.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel so excluded
Yes.
or even intimidated,
Exactly. So while jargon can be useful, within a specific group,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that clear, simple language,
Uh-huh.
that's usually the best way to communicate with a wider audience.
Right. It's about making sure that everyone is on the same page, regardless of their background or expertise. Okay, what's word number 8 on our list?
Let's talk about ambitious,
Okay.
a word that often gets thrown around. But do we really understand its full meaning?
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just wanting to succeed.
Yeah.
It's about having this strong desire to achieve something truly significant.
So it's not just about climbing the corporate ladder. It's about setting goals that are truly challenging and meaningful.
Exactly. Think about it. You could say that someone's ambitious because they want to be a CEO, right?
Right.
But you could also say that a scientific research project is ambitious because it aims to solve some major global problem.
So ambitious can apply to individuals and their goals,
Yeah,
but also to projects, ideas, even entire organizations.
absolutely. It's about setting the bar high and striving for something that pushes the boundaries.
I like that. It's about aiming for excellence, for making a real impact.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep this vocabulary train rolling. What's word number 9?
This one's crucial in our increasingly interconnected world. Empathy.
Okay.
The ability to understand and share the feelings of others.
Empathy is more than just sympathy, right? It's about truly putting yourself in someone else's shoes and seeing the world from their perspective.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own unique experiences and perspectives and being able to connect with them on like an emotional level.
I can see how empathy is essential in so many areas of life, from personal relationships to professional settings to even just navigating society as a whole.
Absolutely. It allows us to build stronger relationships, resolve conflicts more effectively,
Yeah.
and just create a more compassionate and understanding world.
All right, we're almost through our first 10 words.
I know. Can you believe it?
What's the last one we'll tackle in this section?
Let's finish with reluctant.
Okay.
It describes someone who's unwilling or hesitant to do something.
I feel like I use this word all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm reluctant to try that new restaurant because I've heard mixed reviews.
Yeah, exactly. Or he was reluctant to share his ideas because he was afraid of being criticized.
It's about expressing a sense of hesitation or reservation without being outright, negative or dismissive.
Right. And sometimes that hesitation, it's warranted.
Totally.
Reluctant can signal that you need more information or convincing before you're ready to fully commit.
Okay, so we've covered 10 fantastic words already.
I know, it's amazing.
I can already feel my communication skills leveling up.
Me too.
But this is just the beginning, right?
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
We've got 10 more words to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started. Welcome back. I hope you've got your mental dictionaries ready.
Yeah.
Because we're about to unlock 10 more powerful words.
Okay.
That can add some serious punch to your vocabulary.
I'm ready to expand my linguistic horizons even further.
Excellent.
What's the first word we're tackling in this round?
Let's start with elaborate, which means to explain something in greater detail.
Okay.
Think of it as going beyond the surface level, really fleshing out your thoughts.
I can see how elaborate would be useful in so many situations. Like if someone gives a presentation with a really interesting idea, you could say, "That sounds fascinating. Can you elaborate on that point?"
Exactly. It's a great way to encourage deeper discussion and get to the heart of a matter. You're signaling that you're not just passively listening,
Right.
but you're actively seeking a more comprehensive understanding.
It's like saying, "Tell me more, I'm all ears."
I love it.
Okay, what's next on our list of vocabulary power-ups?
Let's embrace a little bit of the unexpected with spontaneous.
Okay.
This word describes something done without planning,
Right.
something impulsive and in the moment.
Ooh, I love a good dose of spontaneity. It's like throwing caution to the wind and just going with the flow.
And sometimes, those spontaneous decisions, those lead to the most memorable experiences.
For sure.
Think about it. Have you ever just taken a spontaneous road trip?
Oh, yeah.
Or decided on a whim to try a new restaurant?
Yes. And those are often the stories I end up telling over and over again.
Yeah.
Right? It's like spontaneity injects a little bit of magic into life.
I completely agree. It keeps things interesting. It allows us to break free from our routines.
Okay, I'm feeling energized by that word. What's next on our list?
Let's come back down to earth a little bit.
Okay.
With mundane, which describes something ordinary, routine.
Yeah.
Or even a bit boring.
I think we all experience those moments of mundanity in our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the everyday stuff that we just have to get through.
But here's the interesting thing about mundane. It's all about perspective. What one person finds mundane, another person might actually find comforting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or even enjoyable.
That's a good point. Like, I find folding laundry to be incredibly mundane, but my partner actually finds it really relaxing.
Exactly. So while mundane, might have these kind of negative connotations, it's important to remember that it's subjective.
Yeah.
What matters is how we choose to approach those everyday tasks.
Right.
And find meaning in them.
Okay, I like that reframing of mundane. It's a reminder to find the silver lining, even in those, most ordinary moments. What's our next word?
Let's get real with candid.
Okay.
Which means open, honest, and straightforward.
Candid. I appreciate people who are candid. Even when it's not always easy to hear, it shows a level of authenticity and respect,
And that candid communication, that is crucial for building trust. And strong relationships.
Totally.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Would you rather someone sugarcoat their feedback or just be upfront and honest with you?
Oh, definitely upfront and honest.
Yeah.
It might be uncomfortable in the moment.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's so much more helpful.
Yeah.
And productive.
Exactly. Candid allows for real conversations to happen.
Yeah.
And we can learn and grow from each other's perspectives.
Okay. I'm ready for our next word. What have you got?
Let's find some relief.
Okay.
With alleviate, which means to reduce or relieve pain, difficulty, or stress.
Ooh, alleviate feels like a very soothing word. Like taking a deep breath and feeling the tension just melt away.
I love that. Think about it in different contexts. Like, a doctor might prescribe medication to alleviate a patient's pain. A government might implement policies to alleviate poverty.
Right.
Or even on a personal level, you could say, listening to music helps me alleviate stress.
Exactly. Alleviate can be applied to such a wide range of situations.
Oh, yeah.
From physical discomfort to emotional distress to societal problems. It's about taking action to make things better.
Yes. to ease burdens.
Okay, we're over halfway through our second set of words.
I know, this is going by fast.
What's next on our vocabulary adventure?
Let's talk about versatile, which describes something or someone who's adaptable,
Okay.
able to be used or function in many different ways.
Oh, versatile is a great word to have in your arsenal, especially in today's world where adaptability is so highly valued.
Absolutely. Think about, like a chef who can cook any cuisine, or like a tool that can be used for multiple tasks. That's versatility in action.
It's about being resourceful, adaptable, being able to pivot and thrive in different situations.
And in a world that's constantly changing, versatile individuals and organizations, they have a distinct advantage. They can navigate challenges and seize opportunities with, greater ease.
Okay, I'm making a note to add versatile to my resume. What's up next?
Let's acknowledge those moments of unplanned action
Okay.
with impulsive, meaning acting without thinking about the consequences.
Oh, impulsive. That can be both exciting and a little bit dangerous.
That's right.
Sometimes those spur-of-the-moment decisions lead to these amazing adventures, and other times, not so much.
It's true. Impulsivity can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It can lead to spontaneity, excitement, but it can also lead to regret if we're not careful.
I think it's about finding that balance between being open to new experiences and making sure we're not acting recklessly,
Exactly. And sometimes a little bit of planning
Uh-huh.
can go a long way in preventing those impulsive decisions
Right.
from backfiring.
Okay, I'm ready for our next word. What have we got?
Let's vent a little
Uh-huh. Okay.
with frustrating,
Okay.
which describes something that causes annoyance or disappointment.
Oh, frustrating. We've all been there.
Oh, yes.
Those moments when things just don't go our way.
Yeah.
Or we encounter obstacles that seem impossible to overcome.
But here's the thing about frustration. It can actually be a powerful motivator.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. When you're frustrated by a problem, you're more likely to put in the effort to solve it.
That's a good point. It's like frustration can fuel our creativity and our problem-solving skills.
Exactly. So next time you're feeling frustrated, try to channel that energy into finding a solution, into overcoming the challenge.
Okay, we're down to our last two words in this set.
I know, I can't believe it.
What's up next?
Get ready to be captivated by compelling, which describes something that evokes interest, attention, or admiration.
I love the word compelling. It's like a magnet,
Yeah.
It draws you in and makes you want to learn more.
Think about a book that you just couldn't put down,
Oh, yeah.
or like a speech that left you feeling so inspired. Those are examples of compelling content.
It's about creating something that truly resonates with people,
Yeah.
that leaves a lasting impact.
And it's not just limited to words, like a compelling piece of art, a compelling performance,
Yeah.
even a compelling personality. All of those can have that same magnetic effect.
Okay, on to our final word for this segment.
All right, let's do it.
What do we got?
Let's conclude with the power of resilience.
Okay.
With resilient, meaning able to recover quickly from difficulties or setbacks. It's about bouncing back from challenges,
Yeah.
stronger than before.
Resilient is such an important quality to have, especially in today's world, where we're constantly facing uncertainty and change.
Absolutely. Think about it. Resilient people, they don't let setbacks define them.
Right?
They learn from their mistakes. They adapt to new situations.
Yeah.
And they just keep moving forward.
It's about having that inner strength and determination to overcome obstacles and come out on the other side.
Yeah.
Even stronger than before.
Exactly. Resilience is about embracing challenges as opportunities for growth
Yeah.
and using them to fuel, our personal development.
Okay, we've explored another 10 amazing words. I'm feeling so empowered by this expanded vocabulary. But before we move on, I'm curious. Which word from this set really resonated with you?
It's hard to choose just one. So many of them feel so relevant to everyday life. But I think resilient, that one's really sticking with me.
Yeah, I can see why.
It's such a powerful reminder that we can bounce back from challenges,
It is. And it ties in nicely with something we've been highlighting throughout this whole deep dive, right?
Learning and using these words, it isn't just about, sounding smarter.
Right.
It's about equipping yourself to navigate the world more effectively.
It's like we're giving our listeners a toolbox
Yeah.
filled with these linguistic power tools.
I like that analogy. And just like any good toolbox, it's important to keep adding new tools, right?
Right.
as you encounter new challenges and situations.
So this deep dive, it's really just the beginning, right?
It is.
It's about sparking curiosity and encouraging our listeners to keep exploring, this vast and fascinating world of language.
A lifelong journey.
So where can our listeners go from here? What are some, practical tips for expanding their vocabularies even further?
Well, there are so many great resources available these days. You could start a word of the day ritual, subscribe to those online dictionaries or like etymology blogs.
Oh, yeah.
Or even just make a conscious effort to pay attention to the language used in your favorite books, podcasts, movies.
I love that idea of making it a daily habit.
Yeah.
It's like a mini workout for your brain,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Flexing those linguistic muscles.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to use those new words in your own conversations, right?
Right.
The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
That's such an important point. It's not enough to just memorize the definitions.
Right.
We need to actually put these words into practice,
Yeah.
to really make them our own.
Think of it this way. Every new word you learn, it's like adding a new color to your palette. It gives you more options for expressing yourself with nuance and precision.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
What's one word you learned today that you're going to commit to using in a conversation this week?
Oh, that's a good one. And I would add to that, how will using that word change the way you communicate? The way you're perceived?
Yeah.
Or even the way you think?
That's a great question to ponder. Remember, the power of language is immense. It shapes our thoughts, influences our actions, and connects us to each other.
It really does.
So go forth, listeners, and wield those words with confidence and intention.
I love it.
That's it for our deep dive into 20 advanced words you can use every day.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, happy wordsmithing.
When you hear certain words, don't they just kind of bring that holiday feeling to life? We're going to dive into some Christmas vocabulary today.
Yeah.
But we're going deeper than just, dictionary definitions.
Right.
We're really trying to see how these words reflect like culture and tradition.
Absolutely. I think that language is such a good window into how people experience the world.
Yeah.
And that's definitely true for holidays like Christmas, for sure.
Okay, so we've got 19 of these most useful Christmas words to unpack.
Okay.
From the source material you sent over. And some are, pretty familiar, like festive and carol.
Right.
But I have a feeling that even those have kind of some hidden depths.
Oh, for sure. You'd be surprised at how much history and nuance is packed into those everyday words.
Yeah.
For example, festive isn't limited to just Christmas.
Right.
It speaks to a much broader human need for celebration and ritual.
That's interesting. Yeah. I've always associated carols with, religious celebrations mostly, but I can see how they've evolved into something more than that over time.
Oh, absolutely. Carols have their roots in ancient traditions, and they served as a form of storytelling and even social commentary back then.
Wow. And some carols still use that beautiful old word, Yuletide, right?
Yeah.
Seems like we're bringing back some of those older terms.
There's definitely a renewed appreciation for the language of tradition.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me, we've got tinsel, bauble, and ornament on our list.
Oh, yeah.
These words bring up a lot of sensory memories, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially tinsel. Who hasn't spent like an hour untangling that stuff?
Yay.
Oh, my goodness. And speaking of decorations, did you know there's actually a difference between bauble and ornament?
That's right. Bauble is more common in British English, while ornament is the more general term.
Okay.
And the source actually gives us the example. The tree looks beautiful with all the ornaments.
Yeah. The source also mentions gift exchange.
Yeah.
The way we exchange gifts really shapes the whole Christmas experience, doesn't it? Whether it's a big family gathering or just a quiet exchange of small tokens of appreciation.
Yeah. It's fascinating how gift-giving traditions vary across cultures.
Yeah.
And even within families. The word exchange itself implies a kind of reciprocity, but that can take so many different forms.
Right. There are some real cultural gems on this list.
Yeah.
Like mulled wine.
Yeah.
Now that's a word that instantly warms me up.
Right.
Have you ever tried a Christmas cracker, though?
The Christmas cracker. It's a fun British tradition where you pull apart a paper tube with another person. It makes a little pop. And inside you find a small gift, a paper crown.
Wow.
And often a joke or a riddle.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah.
The source says, we pulled crackers before starting our Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
Maybe we should try that tradition sometime.
I think you'd enjoy it. Speaking of traditions, we can't forget the words that represent, like, the heart of Christmas, nativity and reindeer.
Those really capture the two sides of Christmas, don't they? The religious story and the more whimsical, fantastical elements.
Yeah.
Like Santa Claus and flying reindeer and all that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing how those two words, nativity and reindeer, can evoke such different images and emotions, right?
Yeah.
The nativity scene with its quiet reverence,
Right.
and then reindeer representing the magic and excitement of, like, Christmas Eve.
Right. And speaking of reindeer, I can't help but think of Rudolph.
Oh, of course.
You know, Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer.
Right.
Our source even points it out. Rudolph is the most famous reindeer of all.
Of course, he's become a cultural icon in his own right,
He has.
symbolizing acceptance and the idea that what makes you different can also make you extraordinary.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That ties in nicely with the word holly, don't you think?
Yeah,
It's not just a decoration. It's a symbol of hope and resilience in the middle of winter.
that's a great observation. Holly has been associated with Christmas for centuries,
Really?
and the source provides a lovely example of its use. We decorated the table with holly and candles.
Oh.
It really adds a festive touch, doesn't it?
It does. It's interesting how certain plants become so intertwined with specific times of year.
Right.
Like you mentioned earlier, language really does reflect our relationship with the natural world.
Absolutely. We also have sleigh on our list,
Oh, yeah.
which evokes a very specific image of winter travel,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you consider the source's mention of a horse-drawn sleigh.
It's a classic image, isn't it?
Yeah.
The horse-drawn sleigh, the snow falling softly.
Yeah.
It's like a scene from a Christmas card.
Yeah.
That makes me think of the word frosty,
Yeah.
which is so evocative of that crisp winter air.
Frosty really captures that sensory experience of Christmas.
Yeah.
The source paints a perfect picture with its example. The frosty morning was perfect for building a snowman.
And who doesn't love a good snowman? Though I have to admit, my favorite winter activity might involve an advent calendar.
Oh, yeah.
Those little doors hiding daily treats.
Yeah.
It's all about the anticipation.
Right.
What are some unique advent calendar traditions you've come across?
When I was younger, my family had a handmade advent calendar with tiny pockets,
Oh, wow.
and each day held a little note or a small treat. It wasn't about the grandeur of the gifts,
Yeah.
but the small moments of joy leading up to Christmas.
That's so heartwarming.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that the essence of the holidays isn't always about material things,
Right.
It's about those shared experiences and traditions.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to something we touched on earlier, how language shapes our understanding of Christmas.
We've only just scratched the surface, haven't we?
Right.
But exploring these 19 words has shown us how vocabulary can be a powerful tool for understanding tradition history
Yeah.
and even the different ways people experience the holidays.
It's like each word is a little window into the vast and varied world of Christmas traditions.
Yeah.
And I think it's time to open one more window. Remember how we talked about adding like one word to this list?
Yeah.
A word that really captures the essence of Christmas for you?
Yeah, that's the real heart of this whole deep dive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just about learning new words. It's about reflecting on what those words mean to us personally.
Exactly. And thinking about that one word, that personal touchstone for the holidays,
Right.
it can really spark some interesting conversations.
Yeah.
What word comes to mind for you?
For me, it might be generosity.
Oh,
It's about that spirit of giving,
Yeah.
not just material gifts, but also our time, kindness, and compassion.
that's a beautiful choice. And it really does remind me of something we've kind of seen throughout this whole exploration of Christmas vocabulary,
Yeah.
how these words connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. Whether it's the sense of community evoked by Carol
Yeah.
or the historical depth of Yuletide,
Right.
these words carry echoes of shared experiences and traditions.
And even a simple word like frosty can transport us back to childhood memories
Right.
of snowy days and winter wonder.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I encourage you to hold on to that word you chose, that word that encapsulates the spirit of Christmas for you.
Yeah.
Let it guide you through this season and maybe even share it with someone else.
Yeah, I like that. Because sometimes the most meaningful conversations
Right.
start with a single word from both of us.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Hey, everyone. Super stoked to have you all here as we kind of like really jump into this topic. I know you're all obsessed with, mastering English.
It's a pretty big deal, right?
Totally. So we're going to be dissecting this awesome guide called, A Comprehensive 1-Hour Guide. And not just like summarizing it,
Oh, wait.
but pulling out the gems, those like super motivating nuggets to keep you going on your English journey.
And this guide, I gotta say, it's not your typical, like, learn English in 5 minutes kind of thing.
Ugh, those drive me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes deeper, looks at the psychology, like why we struggle, how to rewire our thinking.
Totally. And we'll uncover some surprising things too.
You bet.
Like, did you know even native speakers mess up sometimes?
Yeah.
And like watching Friends can be educational. Who knew?
Right. It's about finding what works for you, and this guide's like this toolbox of different approaches, so.
I'm excited to dig in. But first, like the big WHY, right? Want to put in the effort.
The guide starts with this idea of open doors to opportunities, and they use this travel example. Imagine you're like in a bustling market in, I don't know, Morocco or something.
Oh, I love Morocco.
Right. And you can haggle prices, ask for directions, actually connect with people, not just gestures.
That's the dream. But it's bigger than just travel, right?
Way bigger. Think global communication, business, ideas. English is like the key to this whole network.
So it's becoming a citizen of the world. Kind of love that. The guide also talks about building confidence. We know learning anything new does that. But why is it special with language?
Well, language is how we express ourselves, connect. It's part of our identity, right? So the more you practice English, the more confident you become, not just in the language, but in yourself, navigating the world.
It's like that moment when you realize you understand a whole conversation without translating in your head. Bam.
Total mind-blown moment. And speaking of unlocking things, there's this point about cultural connection that really hit me.
We do. It's huge. Imagine enjoying movies, books, music, all that without the language barrier. Like,
you get it, right? It's like gaining access to this whole new world of art and entertainment, that feeling when you get a joke in your favorite show without subtitles. Magic.
Pure magic. But let's be real. It's not all sunshine and roses. There are bumps in the road.
Definitely.
And the guide dives into those common obstacles. And one that probably hits everyone is, lack of time.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right. Between work, life, just existing, finding time to practice feels impossible.
And that's where the guide gets really interesting. It debunks this myth that you need hours each day, like some kind of language hermit.
No thanks.
Yeah, they emphasize consistency over intensity. Even 15, 20 minutes consistently can make a huge difference. It's about using those little pockets of time we all have.
That is so reassuring. Because I think a lot of people get scared off thinking they got to like quit their job to learn English.
Exactly.
The other big one, and this one I'll admit gets to me, is fear of mistakes.
Oh yeah, that can be paralyzing.
It is. Like, I freeze up thinking about making a mistake. So what does the guide say about that?
Well, it's all about a mindset shift. Mistakes aren't failures. They're like stepping stones, proof you're learning.
I love that. Takes the pressure off, because honestly, who's perfect?
Nobody. The guide uses this analogy of learning to ride a bike. You're going to wobble, maybe fall, but each time you get back on, you're getting better.
Yeah.
Language is similar. Every mistake means you're pushing your boundaries. That's where the magic happens.
Okay, feeling pumped already. We've got the why, busted some myths. Now for the fun part, those game-changing techniques to make learning not just bearable, but enjoyable. What's the guide got for us?
Buckle up, because it's about to get interesting. So the guide jumps into these practical tips to stay motivated. And, it all starts with something that seems obvious, but we often miss it. Setting clear goals.
Ugh, goals. Isn't that like generic self-help stuff? I feel like I hear that everywhere.
Yeah.
I hear ya, but the guide gets specific. It's not just learn English. It's about how to set goals for language learning using frameworks that work.
Frameworks. Okay, now I'm curious. Give me the deets.
So they talk about short-term and long-term goals, which makes sense, but it goes deeper, like using the SMART goal method.
SMART goals, I've heard of those, but how's that language specific?
Instead of like become fluent, which is super vague, a SMART goal could be learn 10 business English words every day for a month and use them in practice conversations twice a week.
Whoa, that's way more concrete. I can actually picture that. It's like actionable.
Exactly. And that's what keeps us motivated, seeing those small wins,
Totally.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The guide also talks about making learning fun, which we touched on earlier with that whole cultural connection thing.
Right. Because if it feels like a chore, you're going to quit.
100%. So how do we tap into that enjoyment factor, make it feel less like study and more like, I don't know, playtime?
Well, they suggest using your passions, Instead of forcing yourself to read boring textbooks, immerse yourself in English content you actually enjoy.
So like Guilt-free Netflix binging. Sign me up.
Exactly. Think about your favorite shows, movies, music, YouTube, all that can be learning, sneaky learning, but it works.
Love it. But what about if I'm not quite ready to watch a whole movie in English without subtitles? Baby steps, right?
Totally. They got you covered. Start with something familiar, a show you've already seen in your native language, put on the English subtitles, and boom.
You're learning without realizing it.
Right. Because you already know the story, you can focus on the language itself.
That's so smart. And as you get better, ditch the subtitles. Just enjoy the show.
And don't forget music and podcasts. Great for training your ear, picking up slang, the real life stuff.
Which, hey, that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
See, you're already learning just by listening.
Exactly. But we can take it up a notch. Remember that active listening thing. It's not just about letting the sounds wash over you.
Yeah, it's like engaging with it, right? What were those specific techniques again?
So taking notes while listening, jot down new words, phrases, or summarize what you've heard in your own words. It's like a mental workout.
Brain gains. Love it. But let's be real. Life's busy. How do we actually fit in consistent practice? I feel like I'm always saying, I'll do it tomorrow.
That's where micro-learning comes in. The guide is all about it. Instead of needing huge chunks of time, it's about using those little moments we all have.
Micro-learning. Gimme those mini hacks.
Okay, so imagine instead of scrolling social media on your commute, you listen to an English podcast. Or while you're waiting in line, you review flashcards on your phone.
It's like sneaking in learning without even trying.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with those little bits of time we usually waste.
Mind blown. And speaking of things that are everywhere these days, what about those language learning apps? Are they legit or just fancy games?
They can be super helpful, especially for building vocabulary and grammar. Plus, that gamified element keeps things fun, right?
But how do we avoid just clicking through mindlessly, not really absorbing anything?
It's all about being strategic. Don't treat them as a quick fix. Use them to reinforce what you're learning elsewhere, like from reading or conversations.
So it's finding that balance between structured learning and just immersing yourself in English, right?
Bingo. And speaking of immersion, the guide gets pretty wild with it, suggesting ways to make English a part of your daily life without even thinking about it.
Ooh, tell me more.
One of the simplest but most effective. Change your phone and computer settings to English. Boom, you're navigating menus, reading notifications, all in English.
Sneaky. It's like tricking your brain into thinking in English.
Totally. They also suggest going beyond just watching and listening, get involved in online communities, follow English-speaking influencers, real-life exposure.
So it's like a holistic immersion, bringing English into your digital world.
Exactly. But what about those who are ready to level up, go beyond the basics, really refine those skills? The guide has some advanced tricks up its sleeve. Yeah, for those ready to really dive in, the guide has this section called Advanced Techniques for Improvement. And it all starts with, oh boy, the one that makes most people nervous? Speaking?
Ugh, yeah, tell me about it. I used to get, full-on panic attacks thinking about speaking English.
It's a big hurdle for sure, but the guy, it kind of reframes it. It's not about being perfect. It's about realizing speaking practice is the key to unlocking fluency.
Makes sense, I guess, because you can read and understand, but actually talking is a whole other piece.
Right. It's putting all those pieces together, thinking on your feet. It's where the rubber meets the road.
Okay, so speaking is important. Got it. But how do we actually get better without, dying of embarrassment? Any baby steps we can take?
They suggest language exchange groups, finding other learners who are also practicing.
Ooh, so it's like misery loves company.
Kinda. But it's more about creating this safe space, No judgment. Everyone's in the same boat.
I like that. Takes the pressure off. Any specific places to find these language buddies?
They mention some online platforms like Tandem and HelloTalk. They connect you with people worldwide. You can text, voice call, even video chat, whatever you're comfortable with.
That's cool. So it's like having pen pals, but for speaking practice.
Exactly. And another tip, this one might feel awkward, but it's super helpful. Recording yourself speaking.
Oh, no, not the dreaded self-recording. I always cringe listening back.
I know, right? But it's like having a mirror for your speech. You can hear those little things you might not notice otherwise, like pronunciation, fluency, all that.
Okay, so maybe it's worth the cringe. It's like having a personal coach, but cheaper.
Exactly. And once you've tackled speaking, there's the ever-growing beast of vocabulary.
Ugh, don't even get me started. I learn new words and then they just disappear. Poof, gone.
So relatable. But the guide has some tricks for making those words stick, going beyond just memorizing. It's about like really understanding and using them.
So no more flashcards.
Well, flashcards can be helpful, but they suggest taking it a step further, using new words in context, creating your own examples, making them personal.
So instead of just reading a definition, I got to like make up a whole sentence with it.
Exactly. They even had this challenge. Learn 5 new words each day and then come up with one sentence using all 5. It's like a brain teaser.
Ooh, I like a challenge. Makes it more fun than just, staring at a word list.
Right. It's about engaging with the language, playing with it.
Love it. Speaking of engaging, what about listening? It always feels so passive, but the guide dedicates a whole section to it.
Because it's super important. Listening is the foundation. It's how we absorb everything, vocab, grammar, even cultural stuff.
True. We talked about active listening earlier, but they suggest applying it beyond just podcasts, right? What else did they mention?
Audiobooks, documentaries, even news broadcasts. The key is choosing stuff you're interested in so you actually pay attention.
Engaged learning, always the theme. And remember those notes we talked about? What about when we hear a word and we're like, wait, what was that?
It's going to happen. Don't sweat it. They emphasize focusing on the overall meaning, not getting hung up on every single word. You can always rewind, listen again. It'll click eventually.
Patience, young Padawan.
Ah!
Okay, we've covered speaking, vocab, listening, and now for the one I always dread, writing.
Ugh, yeah, the dreaded writing practice. But the guide makes it less scary. They present it as a creative outlet, a way to really solidify what you've learned.
I'm more of a talker than a writer. Any suggestions for easing into it without, having a meltdown?
They suggest starting a journal, nothing fancy, just write about your day, your thoughts, whatever. It gets you comfortable with putting those English words on paper.
So like a brain dump, but in English.
Exactly. It gets you thinking in English, practicing grammar naturally.
Okay, I can handle that. But for those ready for more, what are some next level writing challenges?
They encourage gradually expanding, from journaling to maybe short stories, emails, even participating in online forums, stuff that interests you.
So it's finding ways to make writing fun, not just a chore.
Exactly. It's all about integrating it into your life, making it enjoyable.
Love it. Wow, we covered a ton today, from the why of learning English to all these practical tips. My brain's kind of fried, but in a good way.
It's a lot to take in, but that's the beauty of this guide. It emphasizes making the journey fun. It's not about cramming or perfection. It's about finding what works for you.
Totally. It's about those little victories, understanding a song, ordering food confidently, or just connecting with someone in their language. Those are the magic moments.
The guide has this quote that sums it up perfectly. Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out.
Consistency is key, right? It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up, taking those small steps, and over time, those steps lead to amazing things.
You got it.
Well, this deep dive has been incredible, but it's just the beginning. There's a whole world of English learning out there waiting for you to explore.
So go out there and conquer.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question. Now that you have all these tools, what's one small action you can take today to keep that momentum going? Maybe watch a show with subtitles, learn some new words, anything. Just take that step and remember, you're capable of incredible things. Until next time, happy learning.
All right, so we're diving into these awesome English speaking tips. And guess what? We're going to use storytelling to help you guys get there. I've been really digging through all these tips, and some of them are so cool. Did you know that simply narrating your day, even just making breakfast or walking the dog, can make a huge difference? There's this story about Jane, who was super shy about speaking, but she started doing that, just narrating her day, and her fluency just took off.
It's funny, we often underestimate how powerful just those everyday activities can be. For language learning, it's all about creating a consistent habit of thinking and speaking in English.
Yeah. I used to struggle with this whole think in English thing. I'd be translating everything in my head before I could even say a word. It was exhausting. And my conversations just felt so clunky. What are some ways to actually shift your thinking into English mode?
Well, that's a common challenge. One really effective technique is to start small. So instead of trying to translate entire sentences, just focus on single words or short phrases. For example, when you see a cat, just think cat in English, not your native language. And then as you get more comfortable, gradually increase the complexity. Another helpful tip is to use visual aids. So surround yourself with English labels, posters, even sticky notes. This constant visual reminder will kind of just nudge your brain. to start thinking in English.
So it's like training your brain to make those automatic connections, right? Instead of going through that extra translation step.
Exactly. And speaking of training, the source material really emphasizes the importance of daily practice, even if it's just for like 10 or 15 minutes. The key is consistency. Think of it like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
And this story about Raj totally proves your point. He was really focused on improving his pronunciation. So he started imitating the dialogue from his favorite movies, paying attention to the actor's intonation and everything. And guess what? It totally worked. He started to sound so much more natural and fluent.
You know what Raj was doing was actually quite clever. He was intuitively tapping into the power of mimicry, which is like a fundamental aspect of language acquisition. When we imitate native speakers, we're not just copying sounds, we're absorbing like the subtle nuances of the language, the rhythm, the stress patterns, even the emotional tone.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's like when we learn our first language as babies, we're constantly mimicking what we hear around us. So why not apply that same principle to learning English?
Exactly. And this leads us to another crucial point that's emphasized in the source material: learning phrases, not just isolated words.
Okay, this is something I've heard before, but honestly, I never fully understood why it was so important. Can you explain a bit more about the benefits of learning phrases instead of just memorizing individual words?
Sure. So when we learn phrases, we're not just acquiring vocabulary, we're also grasping how words work together. In natural flowing speech, for example, instead of just learning the words give and hand, we learn the phrase, could you give me a hand? This teaches us like the grammatical structure, the idiomatic usage, and the natural rhythm of the language.
Oh, so those common phrases become like building blocks for conversations. It's much more efficient than trying to piece together individual words in the moment.
Exactly. Imagine trying to build a house brick by brick versus using prefabricated walls. Phrases are those prefabricated walls of language. They help you communicate more fluently and naturally. The source even gives some great examples, like what's up or how's it going?
You know, I never thought of it that way. That's actually a really helpful analogy. So instead of getting bogged down with individual words, we should focus on those everyday phrases and how they're used in context. That's a fantastic takeaway for our listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the beauty of it is you encounter these phrases all the time. In movies.
Yeah.
Music. And everyday conversations. Start paying attention to them. Write them down. And practice using them in your own interactions.
Yeah. I love that. All right, so we've talked about the importance of thinking in English, practicing consistently, and learning phrases. But let's get even more practical. This source has a whole section on using stories to improve fluency. And I have to admit, I was a little skeptical at first, but then they started talking about visualizing the story and really bringing it to life with details. And it clicked for me. I actually tried it with the sample story they gave about a weekend hike. And it was amazing. I felt like I was reliving the experience as I was telling the story in English. Do you find that using your senses helps you remember things better when you're learning a language?
Absolutely. Our brains are wired to remember things that are like emotionally charged and sensory rich. So when you actively engage your senses while you're telling a story in English, like the sights, sounds, smells, you're creating those stronger neural connections, making it much easier to recall the vocabulary and the grammar. It's like turning your brain into a high-definition movie studio.
I love that analogy. It makes so much sense. And speaking of making things stick, this source also recommends recording yourself speaking English. Oh, I used to cringe when I would listen back to my early recordings. But it really helped me pinpoint areas where I needed to improve. It was like having a personal language coach in my pocket.
Yeah, such a valuable tool
Yeah.
for self-assessment. You can hear your pronunciation, your intonation, the overall flow of your speech. You might notice things you weren't even aware of, like maybe using filler words too often or speaking too quickly.
Oh, totally. I used to say and like all the time. But hearing it back on a recording made me so much more conscious of it. And over time, I was able to break those habits.
Exactly. It's all about becoming aware of your own speech patterns and then making those conscious efforts to improve.
Yeah, for sure. You know, another thing that really stood out to me in these tips was the power of asking questions. It seems so simple, but it's such an effective way to keep conversations flowing and build your confidence.
Asking questions not only demonstrates like your engagement, but it also encourages the other person to share their thoughts, and experiences. It kind of takes the pressure off of you to constantly come up with things to say, and it creates a more dynamic and engaging interaction.
Right. And they suggest using those open-ended questions like, what do you think about? Or how is your seat? Which is a great tip. Those kinds of questions invite more detailed responses and give you more opportunities to listen and learn.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. If you don't understand something, native speakers are usually happy to explain or rephrase things. It shows that you're actively listening and you're eager to learn.
Absolutely. It's all about showing genuine interest and engaging with the conversation. Okay, one last tip from this section that I found really intriguing: expanding your vocabulary with context.
Yeah, learning new words in isolation can be a bit like trying to memorize a phone book. It's dry and it's difficult to retain. But when you encounter words in context, within sentences and stories, they come alive. They suddenly have meaning and purpose.
Yeah, they give the example of the word serene used in the sentence. The lake was serene, surrounded by mountains. And it's so true. You can instantly picture the scene and understand the feeling the word is trying to convey.
Exactly. The sentence provides clues to the meaning of the word serene. You can infer that it describes a peaceful, calm, and tranquil atmosphere. And that visual imagery helps cement the word in your memory.
Okay, so I've always kind of found the idea of role-playing a bit intimidating, but this source makes a really compelling case for it. They say it's like a dress rehearsal for real-life conversations, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like a safe space to experiment, make mistakes, and build your confidence. Think about those situations where you might feel a little nervous using English, like ordering food, asking for directions, making a phone call. Role-playing those scenarios can really help you feel more prepared and less anxious when you actually encounter them in real life.
Right. They even provide this example scenario of ordering at a cafe. Want to give it a try?
Sure.
Okay, so imagine I'm the customer and you're the barista. Okay, I'm feeling brave. I'm going to go for it. Hi there. I'd love to try one of your lattes. What would you recommend?
Okay, welcome to our cafe. We have a variety of delicious lattes. Do you prefer something sweet, or are you looking for more of a classic flavor?
I'm feeling adventurous today. What's your most unique latte?
Let's see. Our lavender honey latte is a customer favorite. It's a beautiful balance of floral and sweet notes.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I'll have that, please.
Excellent choice. One lavender honey latte coming right up.
See?
Yeah.
That wasn't so bad. I actually felt pretty comfortable using those phrases and responding in real time.
Yeah. And the more you practice, the more natural it'll become. You can even involve like friends or family members in your role plays to make it even more fun and interactive.
That's a great idea. It kind of turns language practice into a game almost. Okay, so the source also talks about the benefits of joining English-speaking communities. And they share this really cool story about Ahmed, who joined an English-speaking book club. Not only did his speaking improve, but he also made new friends and expanded his cultural horizons.
Yeah. Ahmed's story really highlights like the social and emotional benefits of language learning. You know, it's not just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about connecting with people, sharing experiences, and broadening your perspectives.
It's about finding your tribe, those people who share your passion for the language and can support you on your learning journey.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is there are so many different types of communities out there, like book clubs, hiking groups, online forums, language exchange partners.
So think about your interests, your hobbies, your goals. What kind of community would you feel most comfortable in, most engaged in?
Yeah, the key is to find a space where you can use English authentically and connect with people who share your passions.
Well, this brings us to the end of our deep dive into these incredible English speaking tips. I have to say, I've learned so much from going through all these sources with you.
It's been a pleasure exploring these techniques together. Remember, the most important thing is to enjoy the process, embrace the challenges, celebrate those victories, and never stop exploring the beautiful world of language.
Yes. And for all of you listening out there, remember that fluency comes one step at a time. Keep practicing, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. Until next time, happy speaking.